The forest was on fire, not in the literal sense but in the way the wind howled like wolves in mourning and the sky cracked open with thunder that echoed through Elena Ridge's bones. She gripped the steering wheel of her Jeep tighter as a downpour hammered her windshield, blurring the winding road through the mountain woods she swore she'd never return to, and yet, here she was, back in Blackthorn Hollow, back where it had all begun, where it had all fallen apart. Stupid, she muttered, wiping fog from the inside of the glass. You should have kept driving. But the storm had followed her. Or maybe, it had waited for her like everything else in this place. The road curved sharply ahead. Her headlights caught a flash of something, a blur of silver in the rain, and then crack. A figure stumbled into the road. Elena gasped, slammed the brakes. The tires screeched on wet gravel. The Jeep jerked. She swerved just enough to avoid him, but her mirror clipped something solid. The car skidded sideways and came to a shuddering stop against a tree trunk. Everything went still, except her heart, which pounded so loudly it drowned out the rain. She shoved open the door and stepped out into the storm. Hey, are you? She stopped. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, half collapsed near the ditch. Blood slicked the side of his face, and his shirt was torn like he'd been mauled. But what froze her wasn't the injury. It was the eyes. Amber. Familiar. No, it couldn't be Elena. The voice was hoarse. It hadn't said her name in over 12 years, not since the summer he'd shoved her into the lake and told her she was nothing but a weak little girl who didn't belong here. Her stomach twisted. Alec Maddox? He blinked, confused, pain flickering through his expression. But the name landed like a blade. The boy who'd tormented her, who'd made her summers at Blackthorn feel like hell. The boy who vanished one night after the fire at the old Hollow Chapel and was never seen again, until now. Elena helped him into the passenger seat, ignoring every instinct telling her to drive away and never look back. He was half unconscious, mumbling under his breath something about the hunt, the moon, and someone named Talon. Lightning cracked overhead. She turned the key. The Jeep sputtered, but the engine held. I must have hit my head harder than I thought, she muttered, glancing at him. Because this is a terrible idea. The cabin belonged to her late grandmother, Tessa Ridge, the town's old healer and something of a local witch. It had been boarded up for years, ever since the Ridgeline left Blackthorn after the pack wars ended. Elena had sworn never to come back, but after the disaster with her fiancé, after the betrayal and the headlines and the whispers in her corporate world, she needed to disappear. And the Ridgeland had always been waiting. She kicked the door open with her foot and dragged Alec inside, laying him down on the couch. The fire still worked. The herbs still hung from the rafters, and the air still hummed with old magic. She grabbed towels, antiseptic, and sat beside him, close up. He looked older, of course he did, but the sharp angles of his jaw, the cut of his cheekbones, the faint scar at his temple, it was all him, the childhood enemy she couldn't forget, the one who once dared her to jump into the freezing lake, then pulled her out before she drowned, the one who disappeared without warning, like a ghost. What happened to you? She whispered, pressing a cloth to his wound. He stirred. His eyes fluttered open. I came back for you, he rasped. I had to warn you. They're coming. Her breath caught. Who's coming? But he passed out. Later that night, when he was sleeping and the storm had moved on, Elena stepped outside into the silence. The woods were alive with whispers. She felt it in her bones, a pull she couldn't name, a pressure behind her ribs like something ancient awakening. Her fingers brushed her neck where she felt a strange heat, a sensation she hadn't noticed before. Then a howl rang through the trees, deep, lonely, a wolf's cry, and in the distance, beneath the silver of the full moon, she saw eyes watching her, not animal, not human, something in between. The morning sun cut through the cabin windows in soft golden streaks, but the air still held the cold memory of the storm. Elena stood at the kitchen counter, stirring a pot of herbal tea, her mind as unsettled as the forest around her. She hadn't slept, not because of the thunder, or the eerie howls, or the man bleeding on her couch, but because her past had literally stepped into her headlights last night, half dead and whispering warnings. Alec Maddox. The name felt like a bruise forming beneath her ribs. He'd once made her life in Blackthorn unbearable, taunting, reckless, always pushing too far. But there was something else. The way he'd looked at her last night, the desperation in his voice, the fact he knew her name after all this time. She moved cautiously to the living room. He was still asleep, shirtless now, with a bandage around his ribs where she'd cleaned a deep claw mark. Not a scrape. Not a gash from a fall. No, this wound looked deliberate, like something with claws had gone for his side. His skin was hot to the touch, almost feverish. And his body, it wasn't just strong. It was inhumanly defined. Muscles that flexed even in sleep, veins like rivers beneath his sun-warmed skin. She forced her gaze away. Focus, Elena. He groaned softly and shifted, then blinked up at her, disoriented. You, he muttered, voice dry like sandpaper. You actually stayed. I didn't really have a choice, she replied coolly, crossing her arms. You were bleeding and unconscious in the middle of the road. He sat up slowly, grimacing. Still. Thank you. That surprised her. The Alex she remembered never thanked anyone, never apologized. He was all sharp smiles and cruel dares. She sat across from him, wary. So, are you going to tell me what happened to you? He rubbed his jaw, looking away. You wouldn't believe me. I'm living in a house that smells like lavender and moonlight, next to a town obsessed with forest myths. Try me. He met her eyes. I was attacked by someone I used to trust. Someone human? A long pause. No, her heart skipped. He said it with such certainty. No hesitation, just fact. What happened to you, Alec? After the fire at the Hollow Chapel, after you vanished? He looked haunted. I was taken, changed, trained, and eventually exiled. Elena's brows furrowed. Trained for what? A flicker of something primal passed through his eyes. He didn't answer. She leaned back. Are you going to speak in riddles all day, or do I get the truth? You're not ready for the truth, he said simply. But you will be soon. That's not cryptic at all, she muttered. I didn't expect to see you again, he added, quieter now. You look different. People change. He nodded slowly, but his gaze lingered. Not everyone does. She swallowed. Despite her walls, her guarded tone, she couldn't deny it. The Alec in front of her wasn't the boy she remembered. There was pain behind his eyes, and something else, something wounded. She walked him to the back porch later, where the forest shimmered with dew. The trees stretched endlessly, quiet and watchful. This place feels different, he said, eyes scanning the line of pines. Like it's waiting for something. Probably for me to leave again, Elena muttered. You never belonged in the city, he said without thinking. She turned sharply. And you never got tired of telling me that, remember? I wasn't wild enough, not wolf-blooded, not pack. Regret shadowed his face. I was cruel, he admitted. I hated how you made me feel back then. Like, I was seen, and I didn't want that. That stopped her cold. You bullied me because you liked me? His jaw clenched. No, not liked. Something else. I didn't understand it then. Elena was quiet. She didn't know what to say to that. He was being honest, but that didn't erase the hurt or the years of shame she'd carried from those childhood summers. But then he added, you shouldn't be alone out here. She narrowed her eyes. I'm not helpless. I know, he said quickly. But things are stirring. In Blackthorn, old laws are breaking. Packs are splintering. Packs? She echoed. Like wolves? Alec froze, realizing his slip. But Elena pressed in. Tell me the truth, Alec. Why were your eyes gold last night in the storm? Why did you call me by name when I hadn't seen you in over a decade? Silence. Then, because the moment I saw you again, everything inside me shifted. He took a step forward. Close. Too close. I shouldn't feel this way about you. You were supposed to be off limits. A ridge. Human. Outside the bloodlines. But something bound us anyway. You're not making sense. He reached for her hand. Look at your wrist. She looked down and gasped. A mark had formed, faint but glowing beneath her skin. A curved sigil, crescent-shaped, etched in moon silver. What the hell, it's a bond mark, Alex said, voice thick. You've been chosen? She jerked away. By who? By you? No, he said quietly. By fate. The words hit her like a blow. She stumbled back into the cabin, heart racing. This couldn't be real. Bond marks? Chosen? Was this some hallucination from stress and wine and unresolved childhood trauma? But deep inside, beneath the fear, a truth hummed through her veins. Ancient and undeniable. Her body had reacted to Alec long before her mind did, and her dreams. She remembered flashes, wolf eyes, a silver moon, a voice whispering her name like a vow. A part of her had known something like this was coming. That night, Alex stayed in the spare room. Elena curled up by the fireplace, the bond mark on her wrist burning faintly beneath her skin. She couldn't stop touching it, couldn't stop wondering. What did it mean? Was she bound to him now? Why her? And why him? Of all people, the boy who haunted her past was now the man standing in her present. And she wasn't sure if that terrified her or thrilled her. Outside, the wind picked up again, and in the distance, wolves howled, calling her home. The next morning brought no clarity, just fog thick as milk rolling through the pines, and silence so complete it pressed against the cabin walls. Elena didn't sleep much. She'd spent half the night staring at the faint silver mark on her wrist, tracing its crescent shape over and over. It pulsed faintly beneath her skin, like it was alive, breathing. Her logical mind screamed for answers, science, psychology, anything rational. But something deeper whispered what she already knew. This wasn't a scar. It was a seal, and Alec Maddox had something to do with it. She made breakfast out of habit: coffee, eggs, toast, but her hands shook. The cabin no longer felt like a safe retreat. It felt watched. "You're up early," Alec said from the hallway, hair damp from a shower, wearing a clean shirt she'd left out. His presence made the air buzz. Elena kept her tone even. "I didn't sleep much." "Because of the mark?" She froze mid-pour. "You knew it would appear?" "I suspected," he said carefully. "I didn't know when." She turned to him. "What is it?" He looked down at his coffee, his features tightening. "A bond mark. A sign from the Luna. It means you're part of something now, whether you want to be or not." Her stomach turned. "That sounds like a curse. To some, it is. To others, it's destiny." She shook her head. "You keep talking in riddles. Luna, bond marks, pacts. What is all this, Alec?" "I'm not crazy." I saw your eyes change. I felt your skin burning when I touched you. Something's happening and you're not telling me what." His jaw ticked. "Because I'm trying to protect you." "From what?" He didn't answer. That silence was louder than any truth. Later, she slipped outside with her camera, her old habit, her one steady anchor. She walked the forest edge, snapping images of moss-covered trees and the pale mist curling around their roots. But the forest wasn't quiet anymore. Every sound felt amplified. Birds flapping above made her heart lurch. A distant crunch of twigs had her whirling around, camera raised like a weapon. It was like her senses were dialed up to 11. And then, she saw them. Tracks. Large. Too large. Not bear. Not human. Something else. She knelt, running her fingers near the imprint. A wolf. But not like any she'd studied or read about. This one was at least twice the size of a normal alpha. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the trees. Her blood turned to ice. She backed away, camera still rolling, heart thundering. The mist thickened, the growl louder, then a blur. A massive gray wolf burst through the trees, snarling, but stopped cold when it saw her. Eyes locked, gold eyes. "Alec," she gasped. The wolf's form shimmered like heat against pavement, and then, right in front of her eyes, shifted. Bones cracked, fur retracted, limbs reshaped, and Alec stood there, breathing heavily, completely naked except for the fog that clung to his skin like smoke. She stumbled back, horrified. "You what are you?" He didn't move. "I told you," he said, voice hoarse. "You weren't ready for the truth." They sat by the fireplace that night in silence for a long time. Elena's hands trembled, her mind racing. "You're a werewolf." "Yes." "And those stories in black, then the old rituals, the blood moon gatherings, they're real." "Yes." She looked at him sharply. "And you thought I wouldn't need to know this before marking me?" "I didn't mark you," he said, softly. "That was fate. The Luna chose." "I didn't choose this." "No," Alex said. "But I think, maybe some part of you always knew." He leaned forward. "When we were kids, do you remember the day of the hollow fire? The one that took down the chapel?" She nodded. "I remember smoke, screams. My mom wouldn't let me near the ridge for a week after. I saw you," he whispered, "running from the trees. Something was following you. Something dark." She frowned. You don't remember because your mother protected you. She wasn't just keeping you from wolves, Elena. She was keeping you from becoming one." The room spun. "My mother knew about this?" "She was a Ridge, one of the last line keepers, humans chosen by the old blood to watch the balance. She erased everything, hid you." Elena's heart ached. Why would she do that? "To keep you safe. If the wrong pack found out what you were, what you might become, they'd take you. Force a bond. Breed a Luna marked heir." She felt sick. "So I'm some magical pawn?" Meant to breed wolf royalty? No, Alec leaned in. You're more than that. You're mine. That night, Elena stood on the back porch long after Alec had gone to bed. She stared at the moon full, brilliant, too bright, and touched the mark on her wrist. It throbbed like a second heartbeat. She wasn't sure what she believed anymore, but one thing was clear. The man she once called her enemy was now the only one telling her the truth, and the world she thought she'd left behind was waking up all around her. Elena sat by the hearth, the fire crackling as she cradled a chipped mug between her hands. Her fingers curled tighter around the warmth, trying to focus on anything other than the memory of Alex shifting in the woods, of bones snapping and fur retreating. She still hadn't caught her breath from the night before, and yet, despite the supernatural madness, she didn't feel afraid, just confused, suspended in that strange place between reality and instinct. As if something inside her had always waited for this without knowing why, Alex stood in the kitchen, quiet and distant. He'd cooked eggs, toast, and coffee again. He seemed to know she wouldn't eat much, but the effort counted. It was his silence she couldn't get used to. Not the brooding, smug silence he'd worn as a boy. This was different. This was a man walking on broken glass. So, she finally said, voice hoarse, you're telling me I've been part wolf this whole time? He nodded slowly, leaning against the counter. Not wolf, but touched by the bloodline. It's why the mark appeared. You're Luna chosen. She gave a hollow laugh. Yeah, you keep saying that like it means something to me. It will. Elena sipped her coffee and studied him over the rim of the cup. You used to tease me, she murmured. Said I was too weak to hike the ridge trails. Said I cried too easily. Do you remember that? His brow furrowed. I do. I was angry then, at everything. My father, the pack, myself. I used to think you hated me. I didn't. You had a strange way of showing it. A pause stretched between them. I watched you every summer, he admitted, voice low. Not in a creepy way, just from the trees. When I ran patrols with the others, I always wondered what would have happened if I'd said something. If I hadn't pushed you away. Elena looked down at her wrist where the silver mark glimmered faintly. You were a ghost to me after the fire. Everyone said you died. I did. His jaw clenched. The boy you knew did anyway. After my father exiled me, I left Blackthorn, lived rogue for years, ran with wolves who had no laws, no bonds. I became something darker just to survive. He walked over and sat across from her. I didn't want you to see that side of me. That's why I stayed gone. But now you're back. Because you're not safe anymore, Elena. Something old has stirred. The mark means you're not just ridge-blooded. You're something more. The packs can feel it. And if they know you're unclaimed. A chill ran through her. You mean if I'm not what mated? His silence was answer enough. That afternoon, they walked the edge of the lake. The mist had burned off, revealing glassy water and pine silhouettes reflected on its surface. Elena hugged her jacket close, memories rising like ghosts. This is where you pushed me in, she said, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Alec winced. Yeah, I was a little monster back then. I cried for hours. My mom grounded me for sneaking off, and I swore I'd never come near this place again. I was trying to scare you off, he admitted. I thought if I made you hate me, you'd leave before the packs noticed you. Well, mission accomplished. They paused near the shoreline. A fallen log offered a place to sit, and they did close, but not touching. He looked at her, really looked. You're stronger than you think, she scoffed. You barely know me anymore. I know enough. You came back to a place that hurt. You're facing things no human should have to. That takes strength. Elena blinked. I came back because I didn't have anywhere else to go. Still counts. She stared at the lake, letting silence fill the cracks between their words. I was engaged, she finally said. His name was Jason. We were going to get married in the fall. Alec's brow lifted slightly. What happened? He cheated with my best friend on my birthday. His expression darkened. I hope you burned something down. She laughed, genuinely this time. Not quite, but I did throw a bottle of wine at his Porsche. Well deserved. A breeze lifted her hair, and she tucked it behind her ear, her smile fading. I think part of me knew it wasn't right. I just didn't want to admit how lonely I was. That I didn't really fit anywhere. Alec reached toward her, slow and tentative. His fingers brushed hers, warm and solid. You fit here. She didn't pull away. For the first time in days, the pounding ache in her chest eased. That evening, as dusk bled through the trees, They sat on the cabin porch watching shadows stretch long and slow across the ridge. Alec leaned back against the railing, sipping from a bottle of herbal tonic left by Elena's grandmother. She was one of the last true ridge witches, he said. Your grandmother. She called herself a healer, Elena murmured. But she used to say strange things. Told me to never look the full moon in the eye. To leave wild berries on the windowsill. She was protecting you in her way. Old magic still lives in this forest. The ridgeline kept it balanced. Elena tilted her head. And now that balance is breaking? Yes. Alec turned to her, his gaze quiet and haunted. You're not alone in this. I'll protect you. No matter what comes. You don't even know what I am. I don't care. You're marked. That makes you mine to guard. The words struck something deep and unsteady in her. Why do you care? She asked, voice trembling. After all these years? His jaw worked for a moment before he answered. Because I've hated myself for everything I didn't do. For every moment I didn't protect you back then. For the day I left without saying goodbye. I spent years running from what I was, Elena. But I always came back to one memory. She swallowed. What memory? You, laughing in the lake. Even after I pushed you in. You laughed. You were light. You were human. And I was already something dark and ruined. He touched the silver mark on her wrist. But you still reached for me. Elena stared at him. At the way his eyes softened just for her. At the pain. Wrapped in his quiet. I didn't know then, she said, her voice barely a whisper. But I think I was always looking for someone who saw me the way I never could. And for the first time since she'd returned to Blackthorn Hollow, Elena leaned in and kissed him, not out of passion but out of understanding, the kind that says, I see your scars, and I'm not afraid of them. The forest never slept, even when the sky turned the color of ash and the wind settled into an eerie stillness. Blackthorn Hollow pulsed with life beneath the silence, whispers of fur brushing against bark, eyes glowing between branches, claws scrabbling against roots. Something ancient watched these woods, and something even older had begun to stir. Elena woke in a cold sweat. The dream vision still clung to her like a second skin. Fire licking up tree trunks, blood staining the snow, silver eyes locked. With hers, not Alec's, someone else's, a predator, a challenger. She rushed to the window, breathing hard, clutching the frame with trembling hands. The moon hung low and golden. Wrong. It felt wrong. Alec, she called, stumbling down the stairs. The front door flew open before she reached it. Alec stood shirtless on the porch, fully alert, pupils narrowed to slits, nostrils flaring. You felt it too, he said. What was that? That thing in the dream? He growled low in his throat. Not a dream, a projection. Someone's casting into your subconscious. That's blood magic, forbidden magic. Her heart dropped. So someone's targeting me. They know you're awakening. Awakening. What? But before he could answer, a high-pitched screech split the woods. Wolves not Alec's kind. Wild, unhinged, and close. He grabbed her arm. Inside, now. They barely made it to the back room before the first one hit the porch. A blur of matted, gray fur and snarling teeth smashed through the front window. Elena screamed, ducking as glass exploded around them. Alec shifted mid-leap, his body twisting into muscle and shadow, fur sprouting in a flash of silver. She pressed herself against the wall as he tackled the intruder midair, their bodies colliding. With a sickening crack, the rogue wolf snarled, bloodied jaws snapping at Alec's throat. But Alec was faster, ripping into its shoulder and throwing it through the table with a bone-shaking crash. Elena, run. He growled, already turning to meet the second. But she couldn't move. She stared at the shards, at the blood, at the monster that had just tried to kill her, and something inside her broke loose. It wasn't fear. It was rage. A pulse surged through her body, sharp and hot, and for a moment the silver mark on her wrist burned like fire. The air shimmered, and then the third wolf slinking through the back door froze. It whimpered, dropped its ears, and backed away. Alec noticed. His wolf turned toward Elena, eyes wide with a flicker of awe and fear. She wasn't just reacting. She was commanding. By the time it ended, the rogues were gone. Two limped off. One was dead. Alec, bloodied and breathing hard, shifted back to human form with a grimace, wrapping a blanket around his waist. Are you okay? He asked, checking her for wounds. Elena nodded shakily, then looked down at her wrist. The mark still glowed faintly. What did I do? You stopped a dominant rogue in his tracks, Alec said, not even trying to hide the disbelief in his voice. No human should be able to do that. I'm not just human, she whispered. He nodded. No, you're not. They sat on the floor amid the debris. The cabin smelled like blood and cedar. The moonlight filtered in through the broken windows. Alec reached for her hand, his palm warm despite the chill in the air. You've awakened something, Elena. The bloodline in you. It's not just Ridgeborn. It's older, stronger. What does that mean? It means the packs are going to come. To test you. To claim you. Some will see you as a threat. Others will want to use me. He didn't deny it. And the rogues? She asked. Were they sent? He hesitated. Possibly. Or drawn to your power. Either way, this is just the beginning. They spent the next 2 days in hiding. Alec made contact with one of the old Ridge sentries, Riven, a quiet, scar-faced shifter who had once served under Alec's father. Riven brought supplies, weapons, and confirmation of rumors spreading beyond the valley. They're saying the alpha heir of Blackthorn has returned, Riven said, and that he's claimed a Luna-marked mate. Elena looked up. Claimed? It's just talk, Alec said quickly. Old customs. Riven didn't correct him, but he did glance at Elena's wrist and mutter something under his breath in the old tongue. After he left, Alec sat beside her on the bed, tension knotting in his shoulders. I never wanted this for you, he murmured. You deserved a normal life. She turned to him, bruised but calm. I never asked for normal. I just wanted something real. He touched her cheek. You're realer than anything I've ever known. That night, she dreamed again, but this time, she stood in a ring of stones, the moon blazing above her. Alec was beside her, in wolf form, and dozens of wolves circled them, watching, waiting. One figure stepped forward, the man from her first vision, dark-haired, amber-eyed, his aura twisted and cruel. He raised a hand toward her. Luna-born, he hissed. Give me the mark, and I will spare your mate. She screamed, and woke with Alec gripping her shoulders. Elena, it's okay. It's okay. You're here. She sobbed into his chest, but neither of them said the truth aloud. This wasn't over, and whoever that man was, he wasn't coming to ask nicely. Elena stood in the circle of ash where the rogue wolves had fallen 2 nights ago. The snow had melted in a perfect ring around the site, exposing dark earth pulsing faintly with heat. The energy felt older than Blackthorn, older than Alec's pack. It hummed beneath her feet, as if calling to something hidden inside her. She didn't tell Alec she'd returned here alone, but she could feel him coming, even before the soft crunch of boots behind her. She knew. You shouldn't be out here alone, Alec said, his voice low, wary. I needed to feel it for myself, she replied, not turning to face him yet. This place, it's like it remembers me. He moved beside her, silent for a long breath. It does. That made her finally look at him. What does that mean, Alec? You keep giving me pieces. I need the whole truth. His jaw tensed. She saw the war in his expression, fear, guilt, protectiveness, all tangled into one. I was trying to protect you, he said finally, but maybe it's time. Back at the cabin, he led her to the trapdoor beneath the hearth. She had never noticed it cleverly concealed beneath the rug and bricks. Alec lifted it, revealing a narrow staircase that descended into the earth. Lanterns lit automatically along the walls as they moved, triggered by motion or maybe magic. What is this? She whispered. The Hollow Heart Sanctuary, he said. It's where your grandmother worked in secret, and where my father sealed the prophecy. At the bottom was a stone chamber carved into the mountain, lined with books, totems, and carved runes glowing faintly. A massive tapestry hung on the far wall, woven with threads of silver and crimson. It depicted 2 wolves, one cloaked in flame, the other in moonlight, standing back to back against a third creature, a shadow with no face. Above them, a crescent moon wrapped in thorns. Below, a woman with silver eyes, one hand outstretched in defiance. Elena stared. That's me. Alec nodded. The Luna-born. He told her everything then, that she was not just a Ridge descendant, but the child of a forbidden union between a Ridge healer and a Lycan warrior from the ancient Moiran bloodline, that her mother had been marked before she was born, that Elena carried a soul-bound mark, one that chose its own fated mate and awakened latent power only under full moons or mortal threat, that she was part of an ancient prophecy written before either of them was born, that Alec had known, even back then. I wasn't supposed to speak to you, he said, voice tight with regret. You were kept hidden, but I saw you shift forms once, just for a moment, when you were 8. I knew then, and so did others. She stared at him in disbelief. You knew what I was, even when we were kids. He nodded. pain shadowing his eyes. I pushed you away because I thought, if I made you hate me, you'd stay away. You'd be safe. She stepped back, fury rising in her chest. You humiliated me, mocked me in front of the other kids. You made me hate this place, hate myself. I know, he said quietly. I hated myself more for it. Her voice cracked. Why didn't anyone tell me the truth? Because the prophecy says the Luna-born must choose willingly. Power without consent becomes corruption. Elena's pulse thundered in her ears. All her life, she'd felt different, misplaced. Now she knew why, but knowing didn't suit the betrayal. You let me live in the dark, she whispered. While everyone else played gods with my fate, I never stopped watching, Alex said. After I left, I stayed close, guarded you from afar. That doesn't make it right. No, he agreed, but it might be why you're still alive. She turned from him, heart heavy, and walked the perimeter of the sanctuary. Every rune pulsed gently under her fingertips, and when she stepped to the center of the chamber, the mark on her wrist flared to life again, this time fully alight. Like liquid silver bleeding from her skin, the runes shifted. A door opened in the back wall. Inside, a scroll bound in gold thread and sealed with a wax crest shaped like a wolf's fang. Alec moved toward her. That's it. The original prophecy. Elena reached for it, and the scroll vibrated at her touch, acknowledging her, choosing her. She broke the seal. The prophecy of the Luna blood born beneath the red sky, of moon and storm. The girl of flame and bone shall awaken the lost bond, mate to the alpha marked by grief, daughter of two broken bloodlines. She shall choose between peace and destruction. One mate, one mark, and the curse will end or begin again. Elena read it twice, 3 times, her hands shook. So it's not just about me, she said. It's about the curse. Alec nodded. The bond between fated mates is what holds balance in the shifter world. When those bonds are severed by force, by lies, by murder, the world begins to unravel. Your parents' union almost healed the fracture, but your mother's death reopened it. And now I have to choose. Her voice was hollow. Yes, he said, stepping close. But you're not alone. She stared up at him. You kept this from me for 12 years. How can I trust you now? He reached out slowly, giving her space to pull away. But she didn't. I never stopped loving you, he whispered. Even when I didn't deserve to. Her breath caught. Something shifted between them, something old, buried, fierce. The mark on her wrist shimmered once more, this time. Alec's chest lit in response, an identical silver glyph pulsing to life over his heart. Their bond had ignited, but before they could speak another word, a gust of cold wind burst through the chamber. Torches flickered violently, and a voice deep, ancient, boomed from the tunnel above. You unlocked the prophecy. Elena spun, shielding the scroll instinctively. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, robed in ash black, eyes like molten silver, the same face from her dreams. I am Talon, the stranger said, stepping into the light. And I have come to claim the Luna-born. Alec growled, already shifting, but Elena stood between them, her eyes burning with sudden clarity. Over my dead body. I said you're not taking her. Alec's voice was barely human, rasping through the partial shift as claws extended. And his spine bowed. Silver veins lit his skin where the fated mate mark pulsed. He placed himself between Elena and the robed figure Talon. The stranger didn't flinch. I'm not here to fight you, Talon said, his voice calm, Irian. It's control. Yet, the girl has awakened the Luna prophecy. She belongs to the circle now. Her presence destabilizes the veil. I belong to no one, Elena snapped. Not to your circle, and not to this fate I didn't ask for. Talon stepped forward, expression unreadable. Beneath the hood, your bloodline was hidden to protect you. But ignorance changes nothing. The soul bond has marked you. You must choose, or your indecision will doom more than just yourself. Alec's growl deepened, but Elena raised a hand. She could feel the truth in Talon's words and something else. Fear. Not for her, but of her. I need time, she said, voice steady. You'll get no decision tonight. Talon tilted his head slowly, as though calculating. Then he stepped back into the shadows. You have until the next full moon. Then he vanished, back in the cabin. Alec was silent, brooding, pacing. Elena tried to rest, but the weight of the prophecy, the scroll, the mark pulsing on her wrist, it made everything feel unreal, as if she'd been thrown into someone else's life, except it was hers, and everything was catching up all at once. You should have told me, she said quietly. I know. You said you were protecting me, but it was control, keeping me in the dark. His jaw clenched. You're right, that surprised her. He turned to face her, eyes burning gold in the firelight. I wanted to keep you out of it, because once you're in, there's no way back. Not for either of us. Then what is this? She gestured between them. Our bond? The mark? Was that even real or just some magical inevitability? Don't you dare call it that, Alex said, voice low and guttural. I've loved you since before I knew what fate meant. Then why do I feel like a prisoner in my own story? She left that night, without a word. She left the scroll hidden under the hearth, her heart splintered and mind screaming, her only goal, to find someone outside of this madness. Someone who might help her undo it. She took her mother's locket hidden in her old room, and a crescent-shaped dagger etched with the Ridge family sigil. And a one stopped her. But she felt the bond fray as she passed the boundary of Blackthorn, like something tearing inside her chest. 3 days later, the northern border. It was a mistake. Elena knew it the moment she reached the outskirts of the northern shard. Cold, barren woodlands stretched into frost-covered cliffs. She'd followed whispers, rumors of a rogue seer who knew ancient rites that could unbind the mate mark. The seer was real, but the price was blood. Your soul bond has anchored, the woman croaked, running bone-thin fingers over Elena's wrist. To sever it would require the death of the bondholder or your own. Elena had recoiled. No, there has to be another way. The seer had only smiled, cruel and sad. Love or freedom, that is your fate. But something else had followed Elena into the wild. Talon's scouts. When she returned to the clearing, the seer was gone. Her hut destroyed. Tracks in the snow, four-legged, massive, fast. Wolves. She ran through pine and snow, lungs burning, heart pounding, unsure if she was racing towards safety or into the mouth of something worse. And then an ambush. A wolf tackled her sideways, sending her sprawling into the snow. Her dagger skidded from her grip. She kicked, screamed, clawed, but the creature loomed over her, saliva dripping from its bared teeth, until another wolf slammed into it, snarling like thunder. Alec shifted mid-leap. He tackled the attacker, teeth sinking deep into its throat. Blood hit the snow in a red arc. 2 more wolves lunged at him, and Elena rolled for the dagger, slashing one across the snout as it neared. Alec howled, rage and pain and fury all woven into one sound that echoed across the trees. By the time it ended, 3 wolves lay broken. Alec stood heaving, half shifted, blood streaked across his arms and chest. His eyes met hers, wild, wounded. You left, he said, voice rough. You lied. She shot back, still breathless. What was I supposed to do? I marked you, he whispered. And it wasn't just magic. It was choice. Mine, yours. She stared at him. Then something shifted. His skin dimmed. The mark on his chest flickered unstable. Alec. She stepped forward, catching him as he swayed. He collapsed in her arms. Later, Blackthorn healing Halalek didn't wake for days. The healers said something in the bond had cracked when she left, when the mark destabilized. Elena sat beside him the entire time, her hand in his, her fingers brushing the faint silver scars on his skin. She wept silently, for the choices they both made, for the love she didn't know how to hold without hurting. When he finally stirred, she was half asleep, head on his arm. Elena, he croaked. I'm here, she said, instantly rising. You came back, he murmured. She nodded, swallowing. I never stopped feeling you, even when I tried to forget. Alec reached up, brushing a thumb across her cheek. I would have let you go, he whispered. If that's what you needed, I would have broken myself to keep you free. She kissed his palm. I don't want to run anymore, she said. But I need truth, always. No more shielding me from it. I'm not a prophecy. I'm a person. You're my person, he said, voice barely a breath, and the mark between them pulsed once, then again, warm and steady, whole. The wind was heavy with omen. From her window at the edge of the ridge stronghold, Elena watched as clouds gathered like wolves across the twilight sky. Tomorrow would bring the full moon. And Talon. She felt it like a storm humming in her blood. The Luna mark on her wrist had begun to glow again, faint, but steady. There was no denying it anymore. The prophecy was real. Her bond to Alec was real. And something ancient was about to awaken. You don't have to face them alone. Alec's voice was low behind her, his presence like a shield at her back. Elena turned. He'd healed well, though the battles had left fresh scars across his chest, both physical and emotional. She found herself tracing those lines when he lay beside her, grounding herself in the reality of him, of them. I was the one Talon came for, she said. It started with me. He stepped closer, cupping her jaw gently. Then we end it. Together. She searched his face, the golden flecks in his eyes catching the lantern light. He meant it. Gone was the arrogant boy from childhood, the brooding alpha with too many secrets. This was Alec unmasked, raw, weathered by sacrifice, yet willing to meet fate head-on. For her, I'm scared, she admitted. So am I, he said. But the difference now? I'm not scared of you choosing something else. I'm scared of losing the chance to fight beside you. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay in the crook of Alec's arm, heart drumming like thunder, eyes wide as the firelight danced across the cabin walls. Something gnawed at her chest, guilt, maybe, or fear that they hadn't earned their peace yet. Then she heard it, a distant, low howl. Not Alec's pack, rogues. She sat up, instincts flaring. Alec stirred immediately, already halfway shifted. His senses were sharper than hers, and the way his shoulders tensed sent a chill down her spine. They're here. Not Talon. Not yet, but a warning. The attack hit the northern flank of Blackthorn just before dawn. 3 rogue wolves snarling, frothing, marked by strange runes across their fur descended upon the outpost with feral rage. They moved like creatures possessed, faster and more vicious than anything Alec had seen before. Elena joined the defense without hesitation, armed with her crescent dagger and instincts that were no longer entirely human. Don't let them draw you outside. The wards, Alec shouted as the pack rallied. They're baiting, but it was too late. One of the wolves slammed into Elena, dragging her past the boundary where the protection spells fizzled into nothing. The cold hit her like a slap. So did the second wolf. She fought harder than she ever had, dagger flashing, blood spraying. One of the rogues lunged for her throat, but she pivoted, jamming the blade upward between its ribs. It shrieked inhuman, high-pitched, and collapsed, twitching into the snow. Then pain, a searing, burning bite tore into her shoulder. Elena cried out, crumpling beneath the weight of the third wolf. Alec's howl split the trees. He tore through the rogue in seconds, shifting fully mid-charge, his massive black form colliding with the attacker in a spray of fur and blood. He fought like something ancient and alpha unleashed, but when the dust settled, Elena was on the ground, unmoving. He shifted back before he hit the earth, sliding beside her on shaking knees. Elena, his voice cracked, her blood soaked the snow. Too much, too fast. Stay with me, he begged, pressing his palm to the wound. Don't do this. Don't leave me. Not now. Her eyelids fluttered. I'm not going anywhere, she rasped, then coughed. The healers came running, but Alec refused to move from her side. When they tried to lift her, he growled half out of his mind until Elena reached for his hand and whispered, "It's okay. I'm still here." Later, Blackthorn Healing Hall. She didn't wake for hours. When she did, Alec was still there, head in his hands, body rigid. "I heard you," she murmured. He jerked up, eyes red-rimmed. "Heard what?" "Your voice. You called me back." She looked down at the fresh scar on her shoulder, now wrapped in silver-etched bandages. She could still feel the echo of the wolf's teeth, the memory of that moment, the choice to give into the dark, or fight. "I wanted to die," she said softly. For a moment, it would have been easier. Alec closed his eyes, jaw tight. "But I didn't," she added. "Because of you." She reached out and placed his hand over the mark on her wrist. "I believe in us now." Alec's throat bobbed as he fought to speak. "I thought I'd lost you. I couldn't breathe." Elena smiled faintly. "Now you know how I felt when you kept pushing me away. I was afraid of who I was, what I'd bring into your life, and I was afraid of losing myself inside fate," she whispered. "But fate didn't force this. We chose it." She sat up slowly, her body aching but her spirit steady. "No more running," she said. "No more secrets. Let's face tomorrow, Talon, the prophecy, all of it together." Alec nodded, eyes shining. "I'm yours," he said. Whatever happens next. Their foreheads met, breath mingling, 2 broken people who had chosen each other again, not because of destiny, but because they'd earned it. The moon rose full and high over Blackthorn, painting the snow with silver fire. Elena stood beneath it, the mark on her wrist glowing like a second heartbeat. The air was thick with magic, not dangerous, but ancient, reverent, the kind that made the world hold its breath. Alec stepped out from the tree line behind her, his shirt half unbuttoned, moonlight catching the lines of muscle and scar. His expression was unreadable, haunted, raw, brimming with something she'd only recently learned to recognize in him: need, devotion, fear of losing her. You should be resting, he murmured. I needed to see the moon, she replied. I needed to feel what it's trying to tell me. He stepped closer, each footfall a silent promise. What is it saying? Elena looked up. That it's time. Inside the cabin, silence cocooned them like snow. Elena paced slowly, unable to still her body. Tomorrow, everything could change. Talon will come for me, for us, for whatever twisted version of prophecy he believes he can control. Alex stayed by the window, his fists clenched. We'll stop him. She turned to face him fully. I don't want to go into this still wondering where we stand. If we're only together because fate forced us. His eyes lifted sharply. That's not what this is. Then tell me what it is, she said, voice low, thick with emotion. Tell me that this isn't just some cosmic pull, that you choose me, that you want me, even if I wasn't marked, even if I was just. Elena. Into steps, he closed the distance between them. His hands cupped her face, gentle despite the fire in his eyes. I hated you once, remember? You were the stubborn girl who climbed to high, ran to far, never backed down. You drove me insane. Elena blinked, caught off guard by the ghost of a smile curling his lips. But I saw you, he whispered. Even then, you made me feel something when I was too young to name it. And when I came back, you still made me feel, even when I didn't want to. His thumb brushed her cheek. I don't love you because of the mark. I love you because you're the only thing that's ever felt like home. Elena's breath caught. The words hit her like lightning, and yet, they were quiet, gentle, undeniable. Her spine straightened, chest rising with the weight of emotion. I love you too, she said, voice barely a whisper. Not because of fate, but because you fight your demons. Because you stood by me. Because you've grown. She reached for his hand and pressed it to her heart. This has always been yours. The first kiss that followed wasn't hungry. It was reverent, soft, a claiming not of flesh, but of spirit. When they sank onto the fur-covered bed, it wasn't rushed or desperate. It was slow, every touch speaking the words they hadn't been brave enough to say. Fingers mapping familiar skin, discovering new meanings in old scars. Alex's mouth trailed down her throat, lips warm and steady as Elena trembled beneath him. You sure? He murmured, voice gravel rough with restraint. Yes, she whispered. I want all of you. They came together under the full moon's gaze to souls tangled in prophecy, trauma, healing, and the unspoken vow of something lasting. Later, Alec lay with her cradled against his chest, his fingers trailing idle circles along her bare back. I feel like I can breathe for the first time, he said quietly. Like something heavy's finally lifted. Elena nuzzled closer. Because we stopped hiding. He kissed the crown of her head. I've never trusted anyone the way I trust you. There was a beat of silence before she added, I keep thinking about what comes next. We fight, he said. We protect the pack. We confront Talon. And then, Alec tilted her chin up so he could meet her eyes. Then we build something that no prophecy can break. You and me, whatever world comes after this. Elena blinked back, the sudden burn in her eyes. You mean it? I want a life with you, a home, a future that's ours, not Luna's. A breathless laugh escaped her lips. I think I want that too. Morning of the full moon, they dressed in silence, ritual leathers, moonsteel weapons strapped to thighs and forearms. But the air between them was changed. It no longer buzzed with fear. Now it pulsed with unity, with love. The pack had gathered. At the Blackthorn Circle, old wolves lit the ceremonial fires. Magic crackled in the sky. The prophecy would reach its peak tonight, and whatever happened next would alter the course of the Luna bound forever. Elena took Alec's hand as they approached the circle. Whatever happens, she whispered, I'm not afraid anymore. He gave her the smallest nod, jaw clenched with emotion. Because we found each other. They stepped into the circle, not as enemies, not as broken children, but as mates. As equals. As the beginning of something the moon had never seen before. The wind stilled just before the first scream shattered the stillness. Elena's heart dropped. It came from the eastern ridge, too close to the Blackthorn Circle. Too soon. The ceremony hadn't even begun. The scent of blood filled the air. Alex stepped in front of her in an instant, his body already tensing, eyes flickering to gold. He's here. Talon. The rogue alpha. Her former Fianki's killer. The cursed wolf who believed Elena's bond was the key to rewriting the prophecy and bending fate to his will. Dozens of shifters shifted around them, baring teeth, hackles raised, everyone to the perimeter. Growled Elder Seal, one of Alec's oldest allies. Protect the Luna bound. But Elena didn't move. She felt it deep in her core. The pull, not just to Alec, but to the earth itself, to the bloodline she never understood. The mark on her wrist burned like fire and moonlight. I need to be out there, she said, gripping Alec's arm. No. His voice was sharp. You're the reason he's attacking. If he gets his hands on you, then I stop hiding. She cut in. I'm not a pawn. Not anymore. I'm stronger than he thinks. Alec stared at her, torn. I just found you, Elena. I can't lose you now. Her expression softened. She touched his cheek. You won't. But I need to end this, not just for us, but for everyone he's hurt. Then, in the distance, a snarl erupted like thunder and Talon appeared at the ridge, surrounded by a band of twisted wolves whose eyes glowed red. His voice boomed across the clearing. Elena Ridge, come to me, and I'll spare the pack. No, Alec growled, but Elena stepped forward, past the edge of the fire. Talon, she called, loud and steady. You were wrong about me. He tilted his head. Was I? You thought I was just human, that you could use me to rewrite fate. But fate doesn't follow your rules. And then, before anyone could stop her, she stepped across the ritual stones into the heart of the challenge. Talon moved like smoke, shifting mid-leap. His wolf form hit the ground hard, massive and black as night. Snarls tore the air as Alec shifted to his fur silver-streaked, eyes burning amber. The battle began. Wolves clashed in a flurry of fang and claw. The earth trembled with growls and screams. Elena ran straight into the chaos. She dodged a lunging wolf, spun, and grabbed a fallen moonsteel blade from the ground. Every instinct she didn't know she had came alive. The bloodline magic in her pulsed, guiding her steps. She wasn't a warrior, but she wasn't weak either, not anymore. She spotted Talon breaking toward the ritual stone, trying to corrupt the magic circle with a talisman of ash and bone. No. She shouted and sprinted toward him. He turned just in time for her blade to slash his arm deep and glowing. You dare, he snarled, shifting into half form, part man, part beast, all fury. I'm not afraid of you, she hissed. He bared his teeth. You should be. Alec fought like a storm, blades flashing, jaws snapping, but he kept glancing toward Elena, panic threatening to overtake him. Elena, he roared when Talon cornered her at the ritual stones, but something changed. The moment Talon lunged for her again, her mark erupted in silver light. Her body lifted off the ground, surrounded by a glowing shield of moonlit flame. The ridgeline magic, the legacy of her grandmother and the Luna herself, had awakened. Talon recoiled. No, that power should be mine. You tried to steal fate, Elena said, stepping forward, her voice echoing. But you never understood what it means to earn it. She raised the blade. It shimmered with lunar fire. Talon lunged. She drove the blade straight through his chest. A pulse exploded outward, silver and violet, ancient and cleansing. The corrupted wolves around them fell back, howling, breaking apart into mist. Talon let out one final scream as his body turned to ash, and then, silence. The remaining pack wolves circled slowly, stunned. Alec shifted back first, bloodied, shaking, but still standing, still alive. He ran to her and caught her before she collapsed. Elena? She sagged against him. I'm okay, I think. He kissed her, hard. You're more than okay. You saved us. She let out a weak laugh. Told you I wasn't just human. They sank to the earth together, surrounded by the dying embers of the battle. The pack began to shift back, one by one, murmuring reverently. Elder Seal stepped forward. The curse has been broken, the bloodline fulfilled. What does that mean? Elena asked hoarsely. Seal nodded toward her wrist. The mark is now permanent. It binds you not only to Alec, but to our world. You are one of us now, Elena Ridge. The pack knelt, heads bowed not just to Alec, but to her, alpha mate, bloodline witch. Luna touched, the one who changed everything. Later, when the fires were rebuilt and the circle cleansed, Elena stood with Alec beneath the moon. Everything felt quieter now, still, whole. You came into this world as an outsider, he murmured, wrapping an arm around her waist. And now you're the reason it survived. I didn't do it alone. No, he agreed. But you were the light we needed. She turned in his arms. So, what now? Alex smiled. Now we build that life you talked about. We heal. We lead. Together. She looked up at the moon one last time. Its light wasn't just silver anymore. It was warm, welcoming. Hers. 3 days passed since Talon's defeat, and the forest no longer felt haunted. where once shadows lingered between the trees like ghosts of the past, now sunlight streamed freely. Wildflowers dared to bloom in the meadow again. Wolves sang not in mourning, but in celebration, and Elena stood on the porch of Alec's cabin, their cabin now, watching as the pack rebuilt their lives. She wore simple clothes, worn jeans, a hand-knit sweater, and Alec's old flannel tied around her waist. Her boots were caked in mud, and her palms still bore faint calluses from the battle, but she'd never felt more grounded, more real. A breeze swept her hair across her face, and with it came the unmistakable scent of pine, steel, and fur. Alec, he emerged from the woods with two young wolves trailing behind him, teenagers, both fresh from their first shift, eyes still wide with wonder. When he saw Elena, he smiled in that quiet, disarming way he did now, the kind that belonged to her. Not the pack, not the alpha, just the man. He jogged up to the porch. "How's our Luna this morning?" he teased. "I'm not your Luna," she said with a smirk, "unless we're going by titles now." He leaned in, brushing a kiss against her cheek. "You've earned more than a title, Elena. You're our future." Later that afternoon, the council gathered at the Blackthorn Circle, now cleared of battle remnants. The stones had been reset, and fresh moss grew along the cracks. The scent of sage and firewood curled into the air. Elder Seal stood before the gathered wolves, his ancient eyes resting on Elena. "The pack has faced many winters," he said solemnly, "and many storms, but none like this. For generations, we believed bloodlines would bind us, that fate could only be inherited." He turned toward Alec. "But this alpha defied that belief." Then to Elena, "And this woman, this once human, once outsider, taught us the power of choice." Elena swallowed hard as murmurs passed through the circle. Seal raised a carved staff. "We recognize Elena Ridge as alpha mate of Blackthorn, not because of her blood, not because of fate, but because of her heart." A hush fell. Then a howl rose. One by one, every wolf shifted or not lifted their voice to the sky in honor. The sound rippled through the trees like a song carried on wind and memory. Elena stood still, breath caught in her chest. Tears slipped quietly down her cheeks, not from sadness, but from something she'd almost forgotten how to feel: belonging. That night, Alec and Elena sat by the fire in their cabin, wrapped in blankets and quiet conversation. "You were incredible today," Alec said softly, brushing her hair back. "I felt like I was going to pass out half the time." He smiled, still stood tall. She glanced toward the mark on her wrist. "Do you think it'll ever stop glowing?" "Not likely," he murmured. "It's a sign of legacy, of the Ridge blood waking up inside you." Elena turned to him. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we hadn't come back here? If I'd stayed in the city, or if you'd never seen me again?" "I do," he admitted. "And every time I think, maybe fate would have found a different way, but we would have found each other eventually." She nodded. "Even if I fought you every step of the way?" "Especially then." They laughed easily now, not from tension, but from relief. The war was over. The wounds still healing, but peace, true peace, finally felt possible. The next morning, Elena woke before dawn, drawn by a strange pulse in the air. Not danger, just something different. She followed it barefoot across dew-soaked grass to the edge of the hollow glen. There, standing beneath the pale moonlight, was Maeve, her grandmother's friend and the one who'd always watched her from afar. "You knew, didn't you?" Elena asked. Maeve turned slowly. "Knew what?" "That I was never just human." Maeve's eyes softened. "I knew your mother feared your blood, that she tried to keep you from this world, but no one can truly hide from the moon." "Why me?" Elena asked. "Why my family?" "Because your line was forged in both fire and mercy. You weren't meant to rule. You were meant to heal. The Luna chooses not the strongest, but the ones who walk through the darkness and return with light." Elena exhaled slowly. "I don't know if I'm ready for all of this." "You don't have to be," Maeve said gently. "You just have to keep showing up. That's what leaders do." By the time the moon set and the sun crested the eastern ridge, Elena felt different, lighter, like she'd been carrying a burden for years without realizing it, and now, finally, she'd laid it down. She returned to the cabin, where Alec waited with coffee, half asleep and shirtless, hair a mess. "You okay?" he asked, voice gravel thick. "I think I'm more than okay," she said. She crossed the room and curled into his arms, pressing her face to his chest. "We're really doing this," she murmured. "No more curses, no more hiding." "Yeah," he said. "We're building something better." They sat like that for a long time, the fire crackling low and warm between them, and somewhere outside. The first snow melt began to trickle down the mountainside, the start of something new. End of section 11. Resolution. Would you like to continue with section 12? Outro. The final emotional close, a glimpse into their future, the pack's peace, and the legacy they now carry together? You said. Next with 1,500 words. Final chat said. Absolutely. Here is section 12. Outro from He Was My Childhood Enemy. Now He's My Mate. A werewolf romance audiobook. Word count 150. Theme. A year later. Peace has settled. Elena and Alec have forged a new legacy together, and the story ends on a gentle, hopeful note full of love, future, and the quiet magic of finding one's place. 1 year later, the forest had changed, but so had she. Elena walked the mossy trail in silence, her fingertips grazing the fern fronds that reached toward the morning light. Spring had softened the land again. The war was a memory now, carried only in stories and the occasional scar. In its place, peace had taken root, not just in Blackthorn, but in her heart. She was no longer the girl who had returned to her hometown out of grief. She was no longer the woman tormented by a childhood enemy's smirk and her own confusion. She was something more, a mate, a leader, a wolf. She paused on a bluff overlooking the valley. The wind carried the scent of pine and river, wildflowers and pack. From here, she could see the village below, rebuilt, vibrant, filled with laughter and life. Wolves darted between cabins. Children tumbled through meadows. And at the heart of it all stood their home, her home. Alex stood by the fence post, speaking with one of the border patrol captains. He laughed at something, brushing hair out of his eyes in that way she now knew meant he was slightly embarrassed. Even now, after everything, he could still be awkward, still be human, still be hers. As Elena descended the ridge, she thought of how much had changed after Talon's defeat and the breaking of the ancestral bond chains. Not just Blackthorn, but surrounding packs had begun to change their traditions. Mates were no longer decided by magic alone but confirmed by choice. Wolves who'd lived their whole lives under rigid, violent systems were now stepping into new freedom. The council had shifted too. Alec had surprised everyone by opening a permanent seat for a non-wolf representative, a human liaison, and had asked Elena to choose who would hold it. She'd selected Kala, the town librarian who once thought wolves were fairy tales. That alone said everything. They were no longer hiding. And no longer ruled by blood and secrets. Elena passed the training fields, nodding to a pair of young wolves. Mid-sparring, one of them, a weary boy named Rafe, grinned at her. Alpha mate, he said proudly. She stopped. Good form, but your stance is off balance. You'll fall left if they fake right. Rafe blinked, surprised, then corrected his feet. You're watching now? He asked. Every morning, she replied. And you're all better than I was at your age. I didn't know you shifted that young. She smiled. I didn't even know what I was. The boy tilted his head. But you're a ridge. Elena looked out over the valley. I am now. Back at the cabin, Alec was chopping wood, shirtless and sweating, his muscles flexing with every swing of the axe. Elena leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. If you're trying to seduce me with rugged labor, it's working, she teased. He looked up, wiping his brow. That obvious? She grinned and walked toward him, slipping her arms around his waist. And it never gets old. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. I was thinking, Alec murmured, about building a second cabin. Her eyebrows rose. Planning to kick me out already? He chuckled. No, for the future. A family. Elena's breath hitched, not from surprise, but from how right it felt. I've been thinking about that too. Alec's eyes warmed. Really? She nodded. Not because we're expected to, but because I want to, with you. That night, the pack gathered for the spring moon celebration, a new tradition, one not rooted in bloodshed or dominance, but renewal. Lanterns hung from trees like fireflies, casting golden light over the clearing. Tables were filled with food, laughter, stories, and at the center, Alec and Elena stood hand in hand, presenting a new crest. Not the Blackthorn insignia, not the ridge sigil, a blending of both, a tree rooted in stone, wrapped in a silver wolf silhouette, the moon glowing above. Tonight, Alec spoke. We honor not just what we were but who we've chosen to become. We are not ruled by fate. We shape it. Elena stepped forward. And as long as this land stands, we will protect it together, not with fear, but with love, with choice. The clearing erupted in howls, cheers, and clapping. Music began to play strings and drums and soft flutes. Wolves danced in both forms, children running between legs, fur flashing in moonlight. Humans and shifters mingled freely. The world Elena had once feared was now alive around her, beating with the rhythm of unity. Later, Alec pulled her into the trees, away from the noise. He held her close beneath the canopy, their breath visible in the cool night air. "I remember the first time I saw you again," he murmured. "You were standing in front of my truck with fire in your eyes. You nearly ran me over," she said with a laugh. "I was ready to claw your face off. I was already halfway in love." Elena rolled her eyes. "You hated me. I hated how much I remembered you, how much I wanted to believe we were fated, even when I thought I didn't deserve it. And now?" He tilted her chin up. "Now I know I don't deserve you, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life earning it anyway." She kissed him, slow and deep. "You already have." Final scene. Somewhere high above the valley, the moon watched in silence. Its light touched wolves and humans alike, bound not by curses or bloodlines, but by bonds forged through choice, forgiveness, and love. And beneath its glow, two souls who had once been enemies danced beneath the trees, not as Alpha and Luna, not as human and wolf, but simply as Alec and Elena, whole, together, free.